I was really out there, bro. I don't know why you hating.
Let's do this, bro.
Huh?
You ready?
You ready? Alright. This little shit. Hold up.
I'm not your phone.
Oh, it's waterproof, don't worry.
Oh,
this is wild.
Shit. Yeah. I was trying lunch. We ready? Are we ready? We on? Just let me know. We on? We good?
Yeah, we good.
Okay, cool. Yo, we back. For those who know us, Raul used to listen to us. We had a show called, or a podcast rather, called Varsity Nights. It's Open Totem, and we back now with the Rhetoric Podcast. Name change, swag change. We're older now. We don't swear that much no more, and I'm no more a critic, and we're no more that loud anymore. So yeah, welcome to the first episode of the Rhetoric Podcast with my boy What's going on, bro? How you feeling?
Damn, bro, let me swallow my drink first. Damn, I'm good. Bro. I was just tired. Cotton Fest was crazy, but we'll get to that. But we're good, man. I'm happy that we're back. I even have to speak with the proper English now. I can't be like, yo, man, you know what I'm saying? Back at it. Nah, bro, we old now.
Like I said, we're
too old.
We don't need to do that extra shit, bro.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we got Renee. Oh, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to give Renee a shout out. We got Renee in the building. For those who used to listen to JXD Radio, I used to have a show with her, Eclectic Vibes. So we got Renee in the building. Renee, just give us a shout out there, please.
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah, we got Renee in the building.
So that's gonna be her job from now on. She's gonna be faceless ad-lib girl. Whoop whoop.
Yeah.
Boop, scoop.
That's
whoop.
yeah. She gonna be.
Oh yeah.
She's gonna be.
That's gonna be her whole thing.
Yeah. So
from now on.
Yeah, bro, we back. We're just gonna be giving you unpopular opinions of hip hop culture.
Well, you more unpopular.
Yeah, me more unpopular.
I think I'll be trying my best to kind of shift you over to the light, but
whatever, bro. I'm just gonna be saying my truth. You know what I'm saying, and there's a lot of it. There's a lot of it. Me, always opinionated. I've always been a student of the culture for many years. I also used to rap myself, so I really look at the culture in a different manner. I look at culture in a more concentrated manner. I look at the culture in a more, unpopular manner. Obviously, I can't also sit here and try to be like a fossil. And not embrace the kids. The kids are doing their thing. So
you still gonna carry on?
I'm still gonna carry on.
Okay, hold on, DJ, just drop that melancholic music real quick.
Nah, leave the melancholic music. So I'm not gonna be out here like the last time, being left side and not embracing the kids. The kids are winning.
The kids got the sauce.
The kids got the sauce. The kids got the streets. And the kids prove themselves, but also I'm going to keep the kids and even the old heads in check because, hey, there's a couple of old heads doing some dumbass shit out here in the street.
Y'all too old for that.
So, yeah. Some of y'all too old for that. So, yeah, man, first episode, Rap Rhetoric, bro. What we talking about? Cotton Fest? Cotton Fest, that's what we talking about.
Is that where we're going to start?
Yeah, we're going to start Cotton Fest.
I think that's a great way to start because maybe then it acts as a nice bridge.
Of course.
A good bridge between what we're also going to talk about, Ricky, and then A-Reese as well. Sure. So, yeah, man, look, Cotton Fest, I think if you break it down, right, at its core, it's actually a great moment, for the industry as a whole.
Sure.
Because it's not just, something that Ricky has his name on and it's it's his thing. I mean, think about the enormity of the task that's at hand of, trying to get 80 different acts to perform.
Yeah.
Granted, it's 2 different stages, but I mean, if you break it down evenly, which I don't think it was in terms of how you split the acts, but it's still 40 acts
per stage.
Yeah. From 2 p.m. until, let's say, 2 a.m.
2 a.m.
Right? So
it's like a
12-hour
shift. Yeah.
12-hour shift to get 40 people on each stage to perform. That's a crazy task. And what I loved about, in fact, I think I was in love. I was in love more with stage 2 than I was with stage 1 because I feel like stage 2 was really where the kids was at.
Of course.
Stage 2 was really where it was all about cultivating the culture. don't even know if I used the right word. I'm just speaking English right now. Cultivating the culture.
Yeah.
But it was captivating, rather, not cultivating. Captivating the kids, because that was where all the other guys that are on the streets, on the come up right now, were performing.
Yeah.
You know, your Unarams, your Manu World Stars, all the way to, you know, your Big Hashes,
Yeah.
to then probably the person that's probably the poster boy of the streets right now, A-Reece,
yeah.
and T-Dub, the government. Shout out T-Dub C, the government. Yo, they done shut it down.
Yeah, they shut it down.
Plug. Content coming soon. Content's on the platform. Check it out.
Another thing that I realized, I don't think it was done intentionally, or maybe it was done intentionally, is that
I think so.
You had the two sides of the industry and of the culture, right? I feel like Cotton Fest was an amalgamation of three different waves, right, of hip hop. You had like old school wave, new school wave, and what I call smooth wave, which is people like Manu World Star, you know, and like the trap soul kids, right? And yeah, I mean, and something the trap soul kids, man, and something that I saw there is that also within that you had two different sides of the industry, or two different sides of the culture.
100%.
Yeah, you had the clean. I'd call them the clean,
mainstream,
more polished stage one, and then you had the gritty street stage two. And even I didn't like the way they were positioned, because I mean, obviously this is some conspiracy theory, overthinking shit, but the streets were lower and mainstream was higher.
But that's just natural order.
But yeah, I guess
order of like the industry and the game.
Exactly. But I think yeah, man.
Plus stage stage one is way bigger.
It's way bigger than But yeah, I think Cotton Fest was a success, man. I feel like we had the conversation earlier on. 10 years ago, this was a dream. You know what I mean? And obviously we look at things like Fill Up. Fill Up is a huge event. But I personally don't feel Fill Up is for hip hop. Fill Up is to celebrate one person in hip hop. You understand? Like you're celebrating one person that managed to do it big in hip hop. Right, with Cotton Fest was almost like the first of its kind to celebrate all around hip hop. You understand?
I think I would say maybe it's the first of its kind for the new generation.
For the new generation,
because
of course.
You still have like
Back to the City,
for the
old, but also
all that kind of stuff.
Also,
but that's more of like the old heads. Like even if you look at the way it's put together, production wise and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
You know, what Ricky said in his interview with Slicker was that, you know, it doesn't make sense, because they asked him about media passes and stuff like that, and he's like, it doesn't make sense to have an event like this and then have 100 people doing media. It's like, nah, that's not what this is about. This is about kids coming out, enjoying themselves, and just embracing the culture.
Which is ironic, because there was a media pit.
Of course there was a media pit, but it's not as hectic.
It's not as hectic as
your
Back to the
Cities and stuff
like
that.
Of course.
Things like Back to the Cities and, you know, all these other things,
but also
become such like, for me, the way I see them, it's almost like it's like a great place. Oh, the thunder, yo, we in the jungle. Okay, we're recording out in the wilderness. None of this clean, polished studio shit that your homies be, you know, trying to sell you on. We're in the pits.
We're in the pits.
You know. But anyway, what I'm saying is that we're back to the city. I feel like those are just kind of like to put it bluntly, brothels for brands, because those are places where brands feel like, wow, here's this thing, and because of its success and its legacy, like, let's just try to put our names on it as much as we can. You look at like the way it gets advertised, you know, on your likes of your MTV bases or your channels. I don't know where it gets advertised now. I don't watch TV, but you look at that, you look at the hype that comes around it, you even look at the type of people that are talking about things like Back to the City. Very much a media related thing. For me, it just feels like it's become such an old head thing. And I think this is actually maybe where it would make sense, because if you think about it, the old heads now, right, a lot of them who are the guys that started the Back to the City. So for them, that was
like making them
exactly. So that was their Cotton Fest, right?
Sure.
But what they've done is that because they become older, and obviously at that time things like hip hop weren't as prevalent, a lot of them diverge into the media space. Diverge into the the commercial aspect of that. You know, media, advertising, etc., etc. So they build relationships around there, and then it kind of becomes like a natural progression. Like that's their thing. It's their people. They spread the message. Whereas Ricky's kind of like, with Cotton Fest, the way I see it is that, not that he was breaking the mold, because there are still brands that got involved, but it's very much brands that he works with personally, or he got, that supported the thing, because the branding situation wasn't so like in your face, like no one brand owned this event.
Of course.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was a Ricky Rick, Cotton Fest, Cotton Club Records, whatever you want to call it,
with
event.
These brands,
and then these brands are helping facilitate.
But here's
other lifestyle,
Here's an unpopular opinion, right? Here's an unpopular opinion I'm coming from a commerce thingy point of view, and also coming from a brand and marketing point of view.
Yeah.
Right. Cotton Fest is the first event,
of course.
Right, and I don't know where Back to the City started. I think Back to the City started the year 2000, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. Hey, I ain't got the stats like that. But it was the same, right? When Back to the City started, it was something like a Cotton Fest. It was something like, oh my God, a breakthrough, bloody, 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 blah. So I think what we experienced was Cotton Fest at its core, right? The purpose of the event at its core. We don't know what's going to happen 10 years later. We don't know what's going to even happen 2 years later.
Of course, I mean.
So I would ask, and I would task Ricky Rick to keep it the way it was, because natural progression is like with any other hip hop event in South Africa, right? Let's look at Philip. When Philip started, it had the core. Right, of the
first one, the dome.
The dome, right. It had the core of, I'm about to fill up the dome. It's an impossible task. I am one man with my friends. I'm going to do it. Now, Philip has become more of as you said, a brothel for brands. Even though there's a narrative that's been pushed that, brands are not trying to risk. But at the end of the day, we've seen it happen towards the last weeks of the event. Brands come miraculously out of nowhere, right? If we look at, as you say, Back to the City, if you look at like any other hip hop festival that happens, you remember that the Sprite hip hop festivals that used to happen.
Oh my God!
Do you understand? Yeah. That also, unfortunately, they phased out because I guess the management didn't work, or the management didn't understand the culture, right? But also they became brothels. You understand what I'm saying? For brands.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one would say that's natural progression, because money rules the world.
100%.
But at the same time, it's like, I hope Cotton Fest doesn't go that way, because then it's no different from anything else. You understand? So that's one thing. That's one thing that I plead and I task Ricky Rick with, because one thing about Ricky Rick, right, which is again another unpopular opinion, is that sometimes I guess, as men, we need to understand and we need to accept the duality of a personality. You could say one thing right now and do the next thing the next day, but he has a pattern of doing that. You understand? He has a pattern of saying one thing and doing the other thing. You understand? And I hope with Cotton Fest he doesn't do that.
Yeah, I think part of that also is like, for me, like, I think a lot of the times when I think about human beings, right, I think about like good heart versus bad heart, right?
Sure.
What are your intentions? That's how I look, and I guess to a lesser degree judge a human being is like, are you good-hearted or bad-hearted?
Sure.
I think Ricky Rick is genuinely a good-hearted person, right? I think everything he does with the proper and right intention.
Of course.
And I believe in the past it was still the case, but then situations happen, and for a long time, I mean, Ricky Rick, especially after he became known,
of course,
he was pretty much independent, you would say, right? Like after he split from Motif, etc., etc. So it's hard for you to, like, let's say, stick to your word and say, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm gonna do it, because then all of a sudden a brand comes in and says, okay, cool, we want to help you do this thing. Bear in mind, you have nothing. Here's R1 million, but let's make slight tweaks. It's hard for you to still be like, you know what I mean? I don't know what Ricky Rick's, money situation is. I don't know what his personal life is like. I can't speak for him. But what I do get a sense of feeling is that even if he might not have he does not have the financial power that a brand can have, he does have the leverage with the audience. Of course, right? Of course. Because at the end of the day, it's kind of like how you look at his deal with Vaseline right now. Vaseline, if you look at maybe social media and so on, they're not like super active, but Ricky Rick would say like things here, and then that's enough exposure. That's all the exposure Vaseline needs. Like they don't even need social media to even promote their stuff anymore.
I mean,
do you know what
brand saliency has been reached for years.
Exactly, right? So for them, it's like they have their people. So Ricky Rick, let me just say this, right, to its core, he has the audience.
Of course.
He can't, because one thing he does as well is that regardless of how old he gets, or the amount of, or the lack of music rather that he drops, he always finds a way to remain in the streets and remain relevant,
of
right?
Course.
That's probably, I mean, Ricky Rick dropped one album in 2015 and he hasn't dropped an album since. I think he dropped Stay Shining EP last year. That's the only thing he's dropped ever since, like project-wise, right? And he's dropped songs here and there. However, when we speak of about the likes of Casper, aka Questa, KO, maybe to a lesser extent, Ricky Rick is still in that conversation as one of the top guys, and that's because of how he's remained relevant. So for me, not to like waver from what I was trying to say, but I think he's genuinely good-hearted and he'll try to always do his best, and I think he knows now he has the leverage of an audience. So if a brand comes through and says, hey, we're going to put 10 million into this Cotton Fest thing over the next 3 years, for example, or even a year, or whatever the case may be, Ricky Rick can still say, cool, that's great, but I have so and so kind of audience, and unfortunately your ROI is dependent on my audience.
Yeah, of course.
So you can say, okay, we need this, we need that, but you will not, I would definitely see Ricky Rick being the type of person saying, you're not going to put your brand all over my thing. You're not going to,
And I think also kind of it goes to like you said, the strategic placement and the strategic picking of the brands that he worked with. I mean, if you look at, we had the MTV booth, we had the Castle Light booth, we had the YFM booth, right? And then he had Web Tickets and I think another media company that was there. Those were the sponsors.
All the stuff the kids interact with.
Exactly. Yeah. Like the demographic was part of right what these other brands that he partnered with are part of. You understand? And I think also the way he did it was very tasteful, because if you look at like thingy, MTV and YFM only brought like booths. You understand?
It was nothing like
overpowering.
Free access. Anyone could chill there. Anyone could interact with.
Of course.
Anyone could. I'm sure at some point they had a cameraman doing his thing. Anyone could get the camera guy to do their thing for them.
Yeah. So I think overall, look, Cotton Fest was like an achievement for hip hop. Like I said earlier on, 10 years ago, if you had to like tell someone sitting in their room like, yo, this is gonna happen 10 years later, and we'll fill up this establishment with this many kids, and they'll all be screaming lyrics to hip-hop songs, right, of new generation rappers, you wouldn't believe it. So I think it's a win in that regard.
Of course.
It's a win in that regard for the culture, and something that Questa said on stage, like, there's no one that cares for the culture like Ricky Rick, and I think he has done enough. Cotton Fest, let's put Cotton Fest aside. I think he has done enough with the pop-up stores. He has done enough with curating just hip-hop clothing, you understand, in South Africa, curating hip-hop style,
and also just promoting like the essence of quality.
Of course.
Because I think one thing that you can't deny about Ricky Rick, regardless of whether or not you like him as a person, you like his style, or you like his music, everything is always properly made.
Of course.
You listen to his songs, proper production, proper mixes, proper mastering. You look at the videos, seamless. Consistently probably the best, artist as far as videos go in our industry. You look at the style, the clothing, he's always kind of pushing the boundaries and breaking them.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I liken him to I don't believe Ricky Rick is the best or the most talented musician, but I think because of his influence and the way he's in the streets, he's definitely one of the most important, right, for the culture.
Of course.
And I remember saying this, when Nafuko came out, damn, man, I must have been in like grade 11 or something. I said to one of my homies that there's something Kanye Westy about this guy. And one of my homies is like, I don't know. I was like, man, I think this guy has the potential to have that kind of influence.
I see the correlation, yeah.
And I said that from way back then because, I think it's just the way he was doing his thing, the way he was fearless about it. You could see that this is a man that was not scared. He was, willing to take the risks. Okay, that's a bit redundant, but you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he just had that hunger to say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. And I think he also just had a great gut feeling that it will work. And because his intentions were pure, he was a good heart. He's a good heart.
I think also because he's a student of the game. I mean, if we really look at, not to move away from Cotton Fest, but if we really look at Ricky Rick, right, the person, how many years has he spent in the game producing for people?
Yeah.
How many years has he spent in the game being in the background?
Yeah.
I mean, so he has studied the game to a point where it's kind of like he knows how to move. It's kind of like he's got the blueprint. All right. What is unfortunate is that obviously we know the industry's got gatekeepers, the industry's got darlings, right? And which brings to the Casper on your vest conversation, but that we'll have later on. But like I feel like with Cotton Fest, Ricky Rick knew how to move. Ricky Rick knew who to bring forth. Ricky Rick knew, because if you look, one thing that Ricky Rick made me realize about our industry is that our industry is small but it's big too. This guy brought 80 acts. Right?
Yeah, actually, when you think of it like that,
acts.
you don't think of having 80, hip hop acts.
And if you really look at it,
yeah.
it's a small fraction of what's there.
Yeah.
You understand? We didn't get the KOs, we didn't get the Caspers, we didn't get the Naughties, we didn't get the Momilimis, we didn't get the Kulichanas, we didn't get other people in the industry. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't get, we didn't get some people that have repped, some of the independent labels either.
Of course.
We didn't get none of that.
We didn't get Ginger Drill.
Yeah, we didn't get those. You see what I'm
understand?
saying? So it's actually, when you think of it like that, because I've never actually thought of it like that, like, wow, there are actually possibly more than 100 different strictly hip hop acts in our country, in our industry.
And another thing is that he realized how big our industry is. I remember when Talib Kweli came and he was like, the hip hop industry is not big enough for Casper and AKA The Beef. And granted, that was back in 2013. I understood what he was saying, but fast forward now, how long has it been? 6 years. And Ricky Rick just exposed how deep our industry goes, because yesterday I was exposed to kids that I wasn't aware of. Like, what's the kid on the Capitol set?
Malachi.
Like Malachi, Champagne 69. You look at the Wrecking Crew. The Wrecking Crew has maybe, let's say, 5, 6, 7 different acts within themselves. You understand? You look at everyone that was on stage too, like Manu and all of these guys.
Yeah.
You start realizing how deep our industry is. And I think Ricky Rick, that's something Ricky Rick has always been preaching, that put the kids on. He was, apart from Kanye West, he was really the first ones to preach the listen to the kids.
Yeah,
you understand? And everybody was, so I think in that regard, the industry is trying, has this, how can I say this, internal turmoil or internal conflict with its artists, because it's like they're trying to show an image of the industry being a small thing, right? So they can manage expectations,
100%.
Right? Not understanding that expectations are really like, yo, you just got Blue in the building right here. You just gotta give him a shout out, man. You just got in the building, bro. Yeah, like, they trying to like manage expectations, obviously to feed their pockets.
Yeah,
you understand, and not actually expose the rest of it. Not understanding that by exposing more acts to the industry grows, more money comes in.
It's interesting that you say that, because you watched the Slick interview, so you saw when someone asked like, "Yo, who's the next big thing?" Yeah, and Slick was like, I don't think there's a next big thing, because of the way it's so deep right now. The industry's, it's not designed, the design can't be that we'll have another Casper, we'll have another AKA type, because those guys, they thrived on the leverage that I'm the guy. You know what I'm saying? And this is it, like, if you're thinking hip hop, you're thinking Casper, you're thinking AKA, you're thinking, KO, whatever the case is. Now, like you said, one crew alone runs hip-hop, has as many acts who are not even, let me rather say, amongst the little kids, so relevant, quality of music so high that you can't deny them. If you think about it, it's like, if we go back to like 2013, 2014, I don't know when the first list came out or whatever, it was like, top 5 KO, Ricky, aka Casper, Cuesta, right?
Yeah.
And that was it. Like, that's how you view the industry.
And mind you, that list stays generic.
Yes.
Which is very unfair.
Exactly. So now you think about the fact that you have a crew, T-Dub, the government, they have more than 5 acts who all have their core, whose music is so pure and so great, and it's relevant. I mean, you see it, like, literally, they perform the one song that I didn't even know, and the kids are crying,
Kids were crying, yeah.
like crying, screaming the lyrics, and I'm like, damn, I don't even know the song, like, you know what I mean? And I thought, like, I was in the know-how, but damn. So it just shows, like, the industry is not designed to have another big act like that. And I think it's something you wrote about, like, how someone like Casper is probably like one of the last anomalies.
Yeah, you can't create another Casper.
Because I think also what the situation then happens where it's even hard. It's like Nasty was in a weird situation where he caught the end of the end of the run of like the big stars toward, like, he was in that buffer zone. And now it's like he obviously has top star quality. You know what I mean? But I think also now everyone is just so like focused on their own little core.
Yes.
Like, that's why it's like you can't even deny that, yes, Nasty is the biggest, but T-Dub, A-Reese, and them probably have such greater relevancy in the streets, for example.
Yeah, which is funny you say that, because one thing that Cotton Fest always exposes is that everyone has their core fans, right? Like there was a time, like, I put the trap kids as like in a hierarchy, you understand? and I'm like, Frank Casino is like the god of them, and then comes A-Reese, then right. But one thing that I realized is that it doesn't even work like that, right? Like when Frank was on stage, Frank had his crowd, and his crowd were going crazy. When T-Dub was on stage, they had their crowd,
which was a lot.
When Champagne 69 were on stage, and that's another thing that is very interesting. I actually found out just now that Boss, Dreamville Boss, attended one of Champagne 69's after parties or like house parties.
I would believe that nigga's wild. He was everywhere, and that's crazy.
And for you, I mean, if I had to go to the normal guy on the street and say, "Do you know Casper?" They know Casper. But if I had to say, "Do you know Champagne 69?" They don't know Champagne.
They're like, what?
But Bars was there.
Exactly.
Which shows like that everyone has their own core relevancy and everyone has their own power in the streets. That, like you said, hip hop has reached a point which is actually thankful to Ricky, because Ricky was also the first one to preach diversification. And preach that, it's okay to be different, and we can coexist with being different, right? And I think he preached that during the Casper and AKA beef, right? He was one of the first to come out like, why can't these two coexist? And he's been preaching that ever since.
Say my name.
Say my name. Yes. And ever since, I mean, it's very funny that when we unpack these things, we should respect Ricky Rick, like, very much, because everything that he said years back is like transpiring right now, and we see it with the kids. You understand? And like you say, like it's interesting how SA hip hop is growing. You understand? Because SA hip hop right now it's becoming less of a genre and more of a culture. You understand? And it's unfortunate to say this, but Philip and Back to the City are still surrounded around making hip hop the genre. Cotton Fest was kind of like the first thing that made hip hop the culture, because it included aesthetics, different types of aesthetics. You had the guys with the 94 drug dealer chic mixing with the futuristic alien foil shit. You understand? Mixing with the bad bitches, mixing with the chakra aligned girl.
Shout out to the homie with the foil. That
You understand?
was lit.
You understand? Like you had different archetypes of hip hop coming and celebrating, and that has never happened. If we had to be real, like that always happens only when Boys and Bucks pulls through, right? And if we look, who's the head of Boys and Bucks? You understand? And if he has a pop up, right? Who fucks with a Balenciaga sneaker and a Vans sneaker at the same time.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So I feel like Cotton Fest was very important. That's why I plead, right, and I task Rick that let this not change its form and let this not switch its form, because it's so important for the culture and it's so important for the next generation. Because niggas like us, we done, right? I speak for myself specifically. Like I remember you looked at Tumi on stage and like, yo, this nigga's too old for this, right? And that's true. Niggas like us, niggas who come from that era, we done. All that we can do is facilitate, right? Is facilitate the movement of the culture. You understand? And also give guidance, because, well, you need guidance because the kids are crazy. Yeah. So we also need to give reference, like, yo, don't forget there's people like this. And I'm thankful that people like Youngster CPT and Shane Eagle and to some extent A. Reese are involved in the culture, and Nasty C are involved in the culture, because they still remind us of when we were listening to 50 Cent CDs in our rooms being called Bomarafak or Yo Yo, right? Because they still have that lyrical content. But they also have the aesthetic of, yo, let's wear foil. Yo, let's wear foil. Like Youngster CPT still dresses like he slangs drugs. So we look at him with pride. Like, oh, you still got it. But the kids look at him like, yo, nigga, you about it. So they can bring, like, those kids can bring, and well, Ricky Rick really brought all generations of hip hop or South African hip hop in one. And we sat there and we enjoyed it
because he embraced it. I think the most ironic thing about it is that I think people don't even recognize or realize that Ricky Rick is an old dude, man.
Yes.
Ricky Rick is like 30 something.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. If I'm not mistaken, he's older than AKA probably. He's definitely older than Casper.
Of course, yes.
Like, you know, probably older than Questa and KO, or around about the same age. He's an old dude, so for him to be wearing, you know, to be about that aesthetic, for him to be involved with the streets so much, like, that's a big deal. It shows that this is someone that genuinely cares. He's not exploiting. And the reason why I'll say for a fact that I know he's not exploiting is because he's the guy. He's probably the guy in our industry that has the most explicit cosigns than anyone else in terms of the top guys.
Of course.
Because although, you know, someone like AKA or Casper or the other big guys might have known of an Aries or let me rather say like a Big Hash or a Frank Casino, might have probably, you know, when these guys are on the come up, right? But they've never come out and explicitly said, yo, this is that, or this is that. Ricky Rick has gone on record so many times on Twitter and be like, yo, this track is fire. Sure. Who is this person? Da, da, da. All of a sudden, then you see months later, he's featured on their song. He does a video for them. I mean, you look at, the whole thing wouldn't have been the whole thing what it is now without that Ricky verse. And Ricky, you know, and Mabala Noah is kind of like putting money together and doing that.